Hi class. We're going to go over chapter 3, which is social perceptions, or how we come to know and understand other people, how we make attributions about their behavior, and how we come to understand their motivations and causes of other people's behavior. Social perception is the process by which we seek to know and understand other people. The first kind of social perception that we're going to talk about has to do with nonverbal behaviors. Often, when we try to figure out another person, what they're thinking, what their underlying emotions are, what their intentions are, we tend to use not just what they say as a reference, but the way in which they act, hold themselves, their facial expressions, the amount of eye contact they give us, things that are nonverbal. So we can try to read the content of what people have to say, the content of their speech, or we can also try to read emotions and underlying intentions by looking at nonverbal cues such as facial expressions, eye contact, body posture, and how a person moves or touches other people. So we're going to talk about some different kinds of nonverbal behaviors and how it is we use cues to read other people. So I'm going to have you watch a soap opera, and the soap opera is from Japan, so it's in Japanese. I'm assuming most of you do not speak Japanese, so you won't be able to understand what the two people are actually saying to each other. But try to figure out if the two women are more likely friends, or if the second woman, who is going to be pictured, is a friend or an enemy. So, what did you think? Were the first two women friends? Were they on good terms? Or were the second two women friends? Were they on good terms? What cues did you use to try to make this assessment of their relationship? Part of what you did was probably reading facial expressions. Facial expressions are one mechanism we use to try to read people's internal states. There are 6 basic emotions clearly represented in basic facial expressions, and these emotions are recognized cross-culturally. So even though the video was from Japan and people were speaking Japanese, you are probably able to read the facial expressions of the woman interacting. You could probably see some level of upset in the woman with the person she was first interacting with, and her smiling and looking happy with the second person. And you probably inferred that she was not on good terms with the first person, but friendly with, and at least comfortable with, the second person. So there are 6 emotions we can read pretty clearly, even if someone is from another culture, even if someone is from another race or another gender. However, there are certain facial expressions that are specific to certain cultures. So not all facial expressions are universal, but these next 6 slides will show facial expressions that should be fairly universal and discernible by most people. So what facial expression do you think is present here? How about now? And here? Try this one. And what do you think about this? And one more. Have a look. So when you looked at those 6 slides, did you guess happy, sad, surprise, disgust, fear, and anger? Happy, sad, surprise, disgust, fear, and anger. These are the basic 6 emotions that we can all read pretty accurately, even if people are from different cultures, even if people are from other races or other genders. That doesn't mean that everybody displays these emotions equally across cultures. In some cultures, there might be sort of cultural norms where people don't display or try to prevent the display of certain emotions and suppress it. So for example, in American culture, perhaps males are raised to not show fear. And so a male in American culture might try to suppress somewhat the fear expression. There are other cultures, for instance in Asia, where showing anger is considered impolite or immature. And so people in that culture may try to display anger less. But everybody knows what those emotions are pretty readily across people. However, there might be certain emotions that are displayed that are not cross-cultural and that really only people within that culture would know what the person was displaying. Eye contact is another channel of communication we use to try to figure out what another person's underlying attitudes or emotions are. Often, we interpret a high level of gazing as a sign of liking or friendliness. It would be pretty strange to have a conversation with a friend and not make any eye contact or to avoid eye contact. In fact, when people try to avoid eye contact with us, we often conclude they are unfriendly, trying to lie, being evasive, or that they're a sort of timid or shy person. However, too much eye contact, swinging over in the other direction, can often make us uncomfortable. Too much eye contact is called staring, and this is when people keep maintaining eye contact despite social cues that we are becoming uncomfortable. And if you want to sort of try this out, find yourself a baby and try staring at the baby. Staring, even by young children, little babies, is perceived as very uncomfortable because we often perceive it as a sign of anger, hostility, or dangerousness. So even very small children do not like being stared at and will become uncomfortable, maybe even cry. Don't make babies cry, though. The third form of nonverbal communication that we're going to talk about is body language. And body language can be any gesture, posture, or movement that conveys some kind of social information. For instance, if someone is tapping their foot, we might interpret that as nervousness or restlessness. If someone continually is sort of rubbing, like twisting a ring or rubbing fingers together, we might interpret that as agitation. So different body orientations and postures cue us in to different underlying emotions. For example, if you were going to ask your mom for something and you wanted her to be open to your new ideas, would you want your mom to look like the mom on the left or the mom on the right? The mom on the left has a very closed posture, arms tight in, face sort of compressed, the body sort of compressed. This indicates to most people sort of being closed off to new ideas. However, the mom on the right, who is Donna Reed, should be more receptive to your ideas. She has an open body posture, she's relaxed, and this often indicates to us a more, sort of open willingness to listen to our ideas. Body language, however, can be culturally specific. Emblems are body movements that carry specific meaning within a given culture. For example, in the US, if you are holding your nose like this, what does that convey to people? Usually, it conveys that something stinks. It might be that something actually smells around you, or you might hold your nose indicating that a situation stinks, that it is not to your liking. And other people in the culture will recognize and understand what you're indicating. So in the US, what do these emblems mean? What does the boy on the right and the girl on the left indicate with these emblems? In theory, if you are from the US culture, you would see this as a peace sign indicating everything's all good, or we're happy, we're on good terms. And this is thumbs up, indicating everything is okay, things are going well. However, these are specific to certain cultures, and if you look internationally, there are other emblems from other cultures that mean different things. So if you have your hands and you sort of bring them down and close them into a point, in Italy, this indicates, what do you want from me? In parts of the Middle East, the thumbs up that we saw before that indicates everything's good, everything is going okay, actually is sort of a form of saying up yours and isn't necessarily a fun and polite emblem. Can you think of any other emblems that are from our culture that mean something that people from another culture wouldn't necessarily know or understand? Touching is another form of communication. How close people can get to us, where they are in relation to us, often has to do with their relationship to us. If you are in a supermarket and a young child runs over and crashes into you and sort of laughs and looks up, we often find this entertaining. If a grown man was running down the aisle, banged into you, grabbed onto your leg and sort of looked up, we would be super creeped out by this experience. This is because touching conveys information, and we have certain rules about who can touch who, having to do with status and relationship. So a child is often considered maybe lower status, they're just learning things. We're often more okay about children coming along and touching us than we are about adults. Touching can convey friendliness. If you pat someone on the back, if they're having a hard time, it indicates, hey, I'm your friend, I'm here for you. But touching can also have a sexual component. If you're flirting and you sort of reach out and touch the person's hand, you're hoping to convey maybe some kind of sexual interest. Proxemics is the study of personal space, the buffer or the zone we like to maintain around us in order to be comfortable. And that zone has to do with relationships. We like certain people, certain distances from us, and we don't like other people coming into certain zones. For instance, intimacy is reserved for people who are family or children or romantic partners, and that's from our body and 18 inches out. We often like only very close others in that zone. Personal distance is 18 inches to 4 feet, and we reserve that for friends and acquaintances. If you have a friend over, you will sort of sit near each other with chairs 18 inches to 4 feet apart. Too far away, and it feels uncomfortable to have a conversation with a friend. Too close, and you might be like, hey, back up. Social distances are reserved for more impersonal relationships, casual acquaintances, and work settings, and this is 4 feet to 12 feet. And lastly, public distances, when we speak or when there's a stranger, we prefer them to be maybe 12 feet away. So these might be adjusted depending on other cultural factors. So for instance, women often have smaller zones of intimacy in the United States where we don't mind close others being maybe a little bit closer. And in other cultures, the barriers might be further away. For instance, in Northern Europe, people prefer more space, but in the Mediterranean, in Africa, and the Middle East, people are okay with people being closer and these zones being smaller.